This will be a quick overview of how to cut elements out within video inside of Premiere. The example that we've got is an interview that was filmed on green screen, and there's elements within the shot that we need to cut out prior to the key. So you can see here in this clip, we've got the camera that's being used as the webcam, got elements of the C-stand. We want to clean all of that stuff out of there before we even pull the key. So I'm going to start here by making a new sequence. Just call this Bcam Nest. And drag that in there. Don't need all these audio tracks. So zoom all the way out. I want to make sure the camera doesn't move. Looks like it's pretty solid the whole time. That's good. Okay. So normally, if we have that zoomed in, I'm going to actually zoom out so I can see the outer edges of the frame here. I'm going to go to the effects palette, video effects, and keying, and alpha adjust. I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to go up to the effects controls, and with this first mask, I'm going to trace around the outside. So what we're essentially going to do is create a mask of the whole image and then cut away pieces of the mask. So over in the settings here, now that I've got the mask completely around the whole frame, I'm going to take the opacity down to 0. So that's cutting essentially everything out. So you can see that it's cutting everything out there, if that helps the view. So now what I'll do is go in, I can zoom back in and cut away the elements. So for now I'm going to invert this just so I can see, and then I'm going to create another mask. Select the pen tool, and so I can see while I'm working here, I'm going to take the opacity of this mask right here. I'm going to crank that all the way back up to 100% so I can see what I'm working on. So in mask 2, I've got the pen tool here. I'm just going to trace around the top of this TV and try to get a clean edge on that. Doesn't need to be too precise. We can always adjust the settings later. Maybe I'll zoom out and make sure that this is outside of the frame so it's completely clear. Can zoom back in. So that's going to cut out that. So now I'll go in here and cut out this part here. So I'll grab the pen tool again. Try to get as close to those edges as I can. That's going to cut that out. I'm going to cut out the middle part here, so I grab the pen tool again. Try to get a clean edge there, all the way down. It's going to take care of that. So now I'll do the two sides. Back, grab the pen tool. Try to get right along the edge of that pole there. Cut that out, and we'll do the other side. All right, so now that we've got all those masks, those elements cut out, I can go back into the mask setting and do opacity 0. And you can see that that's cut all those elements out. And now when we pull the key, it's going to cut out the rest of this stuff here. So if I want to, I can do a test key quick, just pull that up onto V2, go back into my project here, plates, take the home background, go back into my effects palette and keying, ultra key, go back up here. I'm going to collapse all of these masks so I can see up here a little bit better. And I'm going to choose a key close to his head here, key color. So now I can see that the background needs to be resized. I'm going to scale that up just a little bit. So quite a bit actually. So you can see here the key is pretty weak. It's pulling out a lot of stuff, but all of the elements that have been cut out in the mask are gone. So we can actually go back to, we can go to the key setting, try the aggressive setting, and see if that's any better. Obviously the background needs to be blurred out a little bit, so we can go to video effects, blur, sharpen, Gaussian blur, put that on the background and do, can start with 10. That might be a little bit much. Work it down to 8. So now we can see kind of the edges in here that need to be cleaned up. So what that is because the matte mask edges are feathered and we don't want that too much. So you can see there's a little bit of dirty part up there. So that's mask number 1, or that's mask number 2. So what we can do is actually zoom in, and you can see that that is feathering that. What the dotted lines is represent the outer edges of a feathered part. So we'll open up mask number 2, feather to 0, and now we can really get a hard edge on that. We can pull that down so it's right on top of the TV. Get both those keyframes there. So now if we turn that mask off, you can see that's a pretty clean edge. We zoom back out. That looks pretty good there. So now let's go in and clean up the edges of the C-stand in there. So zoom in to about 150%. So we're going to work on the 2 edges there. Take the feathering off of all of those. So mask number 3 is inside there. You can see the feathering. It defaults to 10%. Let's take that all the way down to 0. And so now you can see a little bit of the edge of the C-stand there. Let's drag that down, try to get that as tight as we can. We can actually zoom in even more so you can get a good clean edge. Just select anywhere else. You can see that looks pretty good there. Let's go ahead and start working on the edges of these here. So select that again, go back over to your, just going to scroll down here a little bit so I can get focused in that area. Got the clip selected, go back over to the effects window, effects controls here. So now on mask number 4, that's going to control those inside edges. I'm going to immediately take the feathering down to 0 and drag those keyframes over as close as I can to the poles. Make sure we get all those edges in there. Don't want to go too far. So now you deselect, you can see that's a pretty clean edge in there. All right, let's take care of the outside ones. You can see a little bit over here, the C-stand. That's probably due to the feathering. That is mask number 5 on this side. So we'll start by taking the feathering, mask feather down to 0, and scoot those keyframes as close as we can to the pole. Can actually drag that outside of the frame if we want to. Select something else. That's a pretty clean edge. Let's go over here and take care of these 2 last little dirty points there. That's going to be mask number 6. Again, take the feathering all the way down to 0. Drag those keyframes as close as we can to the TV stand. That we can drag all the way out. Select something else there. Okay, it's a little bit too far. I went a little bit too far in. You can see that edge right there. So go back, select the mask. I'm actually going to zoom in all the way to 400% so I can really see. You can see that I pulled that a little too far close to the TV stand. Deselect that. There's a little bit more room in there. So this is where the fine tuning comes in. A little bit more. So we're splitting hairs at this point. I think it's probably good enough, but I just would like to try to get as close as I can to that stand. That looks pretty good. So now I'm going to zoom back out, and all those elements are gone. Camera's gone there. All the elements of the C-stand are gone. I'm just going to do a quick jump through all the clip. Make sure again that there's no movement in the masks or the cameras. And that looks pretty good.